You're listening to Daily Prayer Stories, Cinematic Journeys of Faith, where everyday struggles meet eternal hope. Daily Prayer Stories presents Season 3, The Story of Rachel. Part 8, The Letter on the Table. Sometimes God's answers don't come through thunder or miracles, ... but through ink, paper, and grace that waits quietly on your doorstep. Monday morning came with sunlight sharp and bright through the blinds, the kind of morning that pretends winter isn't real. Rachel woke to the sound of Noah rummaging through the cereal box, Emma humming in the bathroom. For once, there wasn't panic in the air, just ... normal. The kitchen smelled of coffee and toast. Bills still sat in a small stack on the counter, but they didn't seem as loud anymore. Rachel poured coffee into her chipped mug, the one David used to call the Survivor Cup, and smiled. "We made it another week," she whispered. She helped Noah tie his shoes, packed Emma's lunch, and sent them off with hugs that lingered longer than usual. As the door closed, the house fell into its quiet rhythm. That's when she saw it, a plain white envelope on the floor by the door. No return address. No handwriting, she recognized. Her stomach tightened. She picked it up slowly, turning it over in her hands. Inside, one sheet of paper. Typed. Simple. Dear Mrs. McCarthy, the management office has reviewed your payment status. We're pleased to inform you that your outstanding rent balance has been covered by an anonymous donation made on your behalf. No further action is required. Maplewood Apartments Management. Rachel sat down right there on the kitchen floor, letter trembling in her hands. She read it again. And again, anonymous donation. Her throat tightened. You didn't just hear me, she whispered. You sent help. She pressed her forehead against her knees as tears came freely now, the kind she didn't hide anymore. Gratitude, relief, awe. After a few minutes, she stood, still clutching the letter, and walked to the window. The world outside looked ordinary. School buses passing, neighbors scraping ice from windshields, a dog barking somewhere down the block. But to Rachel, everything had changed. She looked up, eyes glistening. I don't know who did it, she said softly, but I know who sent it. That afternoon, she took the bus to work. She carried the letter folded neatly inside her Bible. Every time she thought about it, her chest swelled with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Assurance. When she walked into the diner, Lana was wiping down the counter. Hey, she said, smiling awkwardly. You're early. Rachel smiled back. Yeah, felt like starting the day with gratitude. Lana nodded slowly, then leaned in. Hey, I was at church yesterday. Pastor Miller told me about the fund. Said someone gave extra, more than what was needed. Rachel froze. You? Lana shook her head. Not me. I gave what I could, but he said the rest came in from someone who wouldn't give a name. Rachel blinked, her throat tight again. Anonymous, she whispered. Maybe that's how God likes it sometimes, Lana said, half smiling. He signs his name in silence. The lunch rush came and went. Rachel served customers with a calm she hadn't known in months. Even Pete, the mechanic who'd mocked her prayers, seemed different. When she brought his coffee, he muttered, Hey, sorry about that stuff I said before. Rachel looked at him, genuinely surprised. Thanks, Pete. He nodded, uncomfortable. Yeah, my mom's been sick. Could use one of those prayers if you're still offering. Rachel's eyes softened. Always. She stepped into the back hallway and whispered, Lord, you're not done, are you? It wasn't a question. It was recognition. The night, Rachel sat at the same table where she'd once broken down over unpaid bills. But now there was a different weight, a holy one. The letter lay before her. Next to her open Bible, she read a verse that had come alive in her heart ever since the letter arrived. Now unto him that is able to do exceeding abundantly, above all that we ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20, King James Version. She smiled through tears. You really do overdo it, don't you? Outside, the wind picked up, brushing against the windows. Rachel didn't flinch anymore. The sound wasn't lonely now. It was alive. Before bed, she tucked the letter into the back of her Bible, not as proof of the miracle, but as a reminder of the silence before it, the silence where faith had grown. Then she whispered, "If you could do this, I can trust you with what's next." And for the first time in a long time, she fell asleep, not from exhaustion, but from peace. Part 9. A call at midnight. Sometimes, the past doesn't knock. It just calls when you finally learned how to sleep again. It was a little after midnight when the phone rang. Rachel stirred in bed, blinking against the blue glow of the alarm clock. 12:07 a.m. Her first thought was the kids. Maybe one of them was sick. But both rooms down the hall were quiet, peaceful. The phone kept ringing. She hesitated before answering, that strange mix of worry and instinct twisting in her stomach. "Hello?" Static filled the line for a moment. Then a man's voice, hesitant, low, uncertain. "Rachel, it's me." Her breath caught. It took her a few seconds to find words. "Caleb?" It had been nearly a year since she'd heard that voice. David's brother. The last time they'd spoken was at the funeral. Words had been short. Tension had been high. She sat up slowly, heart racing. "Caleb, it's late. Is everything okay?" He sighed. "I don't even know how to start this. I've wanted to call for months." "Then why now?" she asked. "Because," he said, his voice breaking a little. I couldn't ignore it anymore. "You keep showing up in my prayers." Rachel closed her eyes. Silence hung thick between them. He continued, words tumbling out now. "I was angry at you, Rachel. After David passed, I blamed you. For not catching it sooner. For not saving him. For everything." Rachel swallowed hard. "I know. I said some things that were cruel," Caleb continued. "Things I can't take back. But last night I woke up. Couldn't sleep, and all I could think about was you and the kids. And then I heard it clear as day in my head. Call her." Rachel's throat tightened. She'd prayed for peace with Caleb months ago. Not reconciliation, just peace. But this was something different, Caleb, she said softly. "I forgave you a long time ago." There was a long pause. Then a shaky breath on the other end. "You did?" "I had to," she said. Holding on to anger was like holding my breath. I couldn't live like that. David wouldn't have wanted that. Caleb was quiet for a moment. Then his voice softened. "He always said you were the strongest person he knew." Rachel laughed weakly. "I think he was wrong about that." "No," Caleb said, voice steady now. "He was right. And I think maybe God's been trying to remind me of that." They talked for nearly an hour. About David, about the kids, about the small, ordinary details of life that still went on. The heaviness between them began to dissolve, replaced by something fragile but real. When the call finally ended, Rachel sat on the edge of her bed for a while, staring at the dark window. The world outside was still and cold, but something inside her had shifted. She whispered, "You're not just restoring my finances, Lord. You're restoring my heart." She got up, pulled her Bible from the knitstand, and opened it to Joel chapter 2, a passage she hadn't read in years. Her eyes fell on the verse that seemed to speak. "Straight into the moment, and I will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten. And thee shall eat in plenty, and be satisfied. And praise the name of the Lord your God, that hath dealt wondrously with you." Joel chapter 2, verses 25 to 26, King James Version. Rachel read it aloud, her voice trembling but steady. "You're restoring the years." She closed her eyes, tears spilling freely now, not of grief this time, but of recognition. The next morning, she found a voicemail from Caleb. His voice was calm, grateful. "Hey, Rach. Thanks for answering last night. I didn't deserve your kindness, but I think I needed it more than you'll ever know. If it's okay, I'd love to visit the kids next weekend. I want to be part of their lives again, if you'll let me." Rachel smiled through tears, whispering, "That's not up to me, Caleb. That's up to Grace." That evening, after work, she took the kids to the park. The air was cool, the sky streaked orange and gold. She sat on a bench, watching Noah chase Emma across the grass. Laughter echoing through the air. She thought about all the nights she had begged God for answers, and how quiet those nights had seemed. But now she realized something. The silence hadn't been absence. It had been preparation. Every unanswered prayer had been shaping this moment. Every not yet had been leading her toward a now. When they got home, Rachel found herself whispering a new kind of prayer. Not one of asking, but of surrender. Lord, even if you never fix another thing in my life, you've already shown me you never forgot me. And that's enough. She turned off the lights, checked on the kids, and slipped under the blanket, peace settling over her like a warm coat after a long winter. The window of grace. Sometimes grace doesn't knock loud. It just sits quietly beside you, waiting for you to see it. Friday morning began with the smell of rain, the kind of soft drizzle that made the world sound hushed, reflective. Rachel woke before the alarm, letting the gray light spill across her room. For once, her first thought wasn't survival, it was gratitude. Down the hall. She heard the kids stirring, Emma humming again, Noah shuffling across the hallway floor in his two big socks. Ordinary sounds, but they felt holy now. She walked into the kitchen, filled the coffee pot, and caught sight of the letter she had taped above the sink a week earlier. God doesn't forget. He just waits until you're quiet enough to listen. She smiled. You were right again, Lord. After breakfast, she packed lunches and got the kids ready for school. As they slipped on their jackets, Emma looked up at her. Mom, are we gonna see Uncle Caleb this weekend? Rachel nodded. Yeah, baby. He's coming over Sunday. Will he bring stories about Dad again? Noah asked. I hope so, she said softly. Good ones. They both grinned, hugging her before heading out the door. The moment the door shut, Rachel stood still for a long breath. The kind that feels like starting over. When the mail came later that morning, she almost ignored it. But one envelope stood out. Thicker, handwritten, no return address. Her name on the front. Rachel Meeks AARTHY. Got inside was a folded note and a small check. No sender's name. Just a short message written in unfamiliar cursive. Rachel, this is from a friend of David's, someone he helped long ago when I was at my lowest. He told me once, if you ever get back on your feet, help someone who's falling. I've been carrying that debt for years. I think now's the time to pay it forward. Keep standing. You're doing better than you think. The check was for $1,000. Rachel stared at it, frozen. Then she laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from relief and awe colliding. She looked toward the ceiling, eyes glistening. You don't stop, do you? That evening, Caleb stopped by. He looked nervous standing on her porch, holding a box of takeout and 2 small gift bags for the kids. Rachel smiled. Come in. The night was easy, gentle. They ate together, shared stories about David, and laughed about things that used to hurt too much to mention. After the kids went to bed, Caleb lingered by the window, staring out at the soft rain. You know, he said, David used to tell me that if anything ever happened to him, I should look after you and the kids. I never did. Rachel shook her head. You're here now. That's enough. He turned to her, eyes heavy but peaceful. You really forgave me, didn't you? I had to, she said. God doesn't hold grudges. He writes redemption stories. Later, after he left, Rachel sat on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The lamp beside her glowed warm against the window pane. Outside, the rain had stopped. The moon broke through thin clouds, casting silver light across the yard. She reached for her Bible, opening it to a verse she had underlined years ago, but never truly understood until now. For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, King James Version. She read it aloud and smiled, whispering, You really do think of everything, don't you? The house was silent again, but this time it wasn't the heavy kind. It was the peace after the storm kind. Rachel stood, walked to the window, and pressed her palm against the cool glass. Streetlights shimmered through droplets of rain. Still clinging to the pane, her reflection looked tired but whole. Changed. Thank you, she said softly. Not just for the money. For the healing, for reminding me that you never left. The wind stirred outside, gentle as breath. For a moment, it almost felt like David was there, not in ghost or vision, but in peace. She whispered, "We're okay now." Really okay. Rachel's story began with loss, a husband, a home, a sense of control. But God never promised an easy road. He promised his presence, and somewhere between unanswered prayers and quiet miracles, she found it. Grace didn't erase her pain. It met her inside it. And in that meeting, she discovered something eternal. God doesn't forget the ones who keep knocking. This is Daily Prayer Stories, real lives, real faith, and a God who still writes endings worth waiting for. This was the final chapter of Rachel's journey, but next Monday, a new story begins. Season 4. The story of Grace A. Young woman haunted by her past finds herself standing in a church doorway. She swore she'd never enter again. Redemption doesn't knock this time. It waits inside.